Humphrey Bogart saw a letter addressed to Lauren Bacall and decided to keep it for the rest of his life. January 1957, Los Angeles. The rain falls softly over Holmby Hills, tapping against the windows of a house that has seen more love than most mansions ever will. Inside, in a bedroom that smells of medication and old books, a man lies in bed. His face is thinner now. The sharp features that once commanded the screen have softened with illness. But his eyes, those dark, knowing eyes, remain exactly the same. Humphrey Bogart is dying, and he knows it. On the nightstand beside him sits a glass of water, a half-empty pack of cigarettes he can no longer smoke, and a single envelope. The envelope is yellowed with age. The edges are worn soft from being handled thousands of times. The handwriting on the front is elegant, feminine, unmistakable. It reads simply, "To my beloved Bogey." He reaches for it now, as he does every night. His hand trembles slightly as his fingers brush the paper. This letter has traveled with him for 12 years, through film sets and award ceremonies, through arguments and reconciliations, through the birth of 2 children and the slow surrender of his body to something he cannot fight. Lauren Bacall stands in the doorway. She watches her husband hold that envelope against his chest. She has seen him do this 1,000 times, and still it moves her. Because she knows what that letter means. She knows what it cost her to write it, and she knows that in all their years together, he has never once let anyone else read a single word. This is the story of that letter. The story of how 2 people found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances. The story of a love that transformed Hollywood's greatest tough guy into something he never expected to become, a man who believed in forever. But to understand why that letter matters, we need to go back. Back to a time before the world knew them as Bogey and Baby. Back to the moment when everything changed. October 1943, Warner Brothers Studio, Burbank, California. The lot is buzzing with activity. Grips haul equipment between sound stages. Directors bark orders through megaphones. Somewhere in the distance, an orchestra rehearses a score that will never be remembered. This is the factory floor of dreams, and like any factory, it runs on efficiency, not emotion. Howard Hawks sits in his office on the 2nd floor of the main building. He is reviewing headshots for his next picture, a wartime adventure called To Have and Have Not. The lead role has already been cast. Humphrey Bogart, fresh off the success of Casablanca, will play Harry Morgan, a fishing boat captain drawn reluctantly into the French resistance. But Hawks needs someone for the female lead, someone new, someone who can match Bogart's cynical charm with something equally magnetic. He has seen dozens of actresses, pretty faces all of them, but none have that quality he is looking for, that indefinable spark that makes the camera fall in love. His secretary knocks. There is a young woman here for an audition. She is 19 years old. She has almost no experience. But Hawks's wife saw her modeling photo in a magazine and thought she had potential. Hawks sighs. Another model with dreams of stardom. He has seen 100 of them. They look beautiful in photographs, but freeze the moment the camera starts rolling. Still, he owes his wife a favor. He tells his secretary to send her in. The door opens, and Betty Joan Persky walks into the room. She is not what he expected. She is tall, taller than most leading ladies. Her features are strong, almost masculine in their definition. Her voice, when she speaks, carries a husky depth that seems to belong to a woman twice her age. But it is her eyes that stop him. Green eyes that burn with an intelligence and intensity he has rarely seen. She sits across from him. She does not fidget or apologize for her inexperience. She simply waits, watching him with those remarkable eyes. Hawks hands her a script, a scene between Harry Morgan and the woman who will become his unlikely partner. He tells her to read the lines. She takes the pages, studies them for a moment, then looks up. "Should I read them the way they are written?" she asks. "Or the way they should be written?" Hawks cannot help but smile. This one has courage. He tells her to read them however she thinks best. What happens next changes everything. She transforms. The nervous teenager disappears. In her place stands a woman who has seen too much, loved too hard, and stopped believing in fairy tales long ago. Her voice drops even lower. Her chin tilts down, and she looks up through her lashes, a technique that will become her signature, born from necessity because looking straight ahead made her hands shake too visibly. When she finishes, the room is silent. Hawks leans back in his chair. He has been in this business for 20 years. He has discovered stars and destroyed careers. He knows talent when he sees it, and he is looking at something extraordinary. "What should I call you?" he asks. She thinks for a moment. "Betty Joan Persky." It does not exactly roll off the tongue. "Lauren," she says finally. "Lauren Bacall." Hawkes nods. He picks up his phone and calls the casting office. There will be no more auditions for the female lead. He has found what he was looking for. 3 weeks later, Lauren Bacall meets Humphrey Bogart for the first time. The moment is not romantic. It is not even particularly memorable. She is on the Warner Brothers lot, walking between sound stages, trying to look like she belongs there. He is sitting outside his dressing room, smoking a cigarette and reading the newspaper. He barely looks up when she passes, but she looks at him. Humphrey Bogart is 44 years old. He has been married 3 times, each marriage more turbulent than the last. His current wife, Mayo Methot, is an actress whose career has faded as his has risen. Their relationship is legendary for its volatility. They fight in public, they throw things. Hollywood calls them the battling Bogarts, and the nickname is not a term of endearment. He is not handsome in the traditional sense. His face is weathered, scarred by a difficult childhood and decades of hard living. His hairline has receded. His teeth are stained from years of cigarettes and whiskey. When he smiles, which is not often, there is something vaguely threatening about it. And yet, there is something else, something in the way he carries himself. Something in those dark eyes that suggests depths he shows to no one. Lauren Bacall looks at this middle-aged man with his newspaper and his cigarette, and something shifts inside her. She does not understand it yet. She will not understand it for weeks, but something fundamental has changed. Filming begins on February 29, 1944. The first day is a disaster. Lauren Bacall is terrified. The reality of what she has taken on crashes over her like a wave. She is 19 years old. She has never made a movie, and now she is expected to match wits with the biggest star in Hollywood, while Howard Hawks watches her every move. Her hands shake so badly she cannot hold her props. Her voice, that distinctive husky voice that won her the role, comes out thin and trembling. Every time Hawks calls for another take, she feels herself shrinking. Bogart watches all of this without expression. Between takes, he approaches her. She expects criticism, perhaps mockery. Instead, he speaks quietly so that only she can hear. "You know why your hands are shaking?" She shakes her head. "Because you are trying to be perfect," he says. "Stop trying. Perfect is boring. Give me real." She stares at him. No one has ever spoken to her like this before. In the modeling world, in the audition rooms, everyone wanted perfect. Smile wider, stand straighter, be prettier. But here is Humphrey Bogart, Hollywood's biggest star, telling her that perfect is the last thing he wants. "How do I do that?" she asks. He takes a long drag of his cigarette. Forget the camera, forget Hawks. Forget everyone watching. When that scene starts, there is only you and me. Just 2 people talking. Can you do that? She takes a breath. "I can try." Then try. The next take is different. Her hands still tremble, but she uses it. Transforms nervousness into something that reads as vulnerability on screen. She keeps her chin down, looks up through her lashes, partly to hide her shaking, partly because she has discovered it creates an intimacy the camera loves. And when she delivers her lines, she delivers them to Bogart alone. Just 2 people talking. Everything else fades away. When Hawks calls cut, there is silence on the set. Then Bogart does something unexpected. He applauds. A slow, deliberate clap that echoes through the soundstage. One by one, the crew joins in. Lauren Bacall stands there, tears threatening to spill, as the people around her acknowledge something special has just happened. That night, she cannot sleep. She lies in her small apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The way he looked at her during the scene, the way his voice dropped when he spoke to her between takes, the way his hand brushed hers when he handed her the script, and how that simple touch sent electricity through her entire body. She is 19 years old. She knows nothing about love, but she knows that something is happening that she cannot control. Meanwhile, in his house in the Hollywood Hills, Humphrey Bogart sits alone in his study. Mayo is out somewhere. A party, a bar. He has stopped keeping track. Their marriage has become a war of attrition, each battle leaving new scars. He pours himself a whiskey and thinks about the day, about that young actress with the green eyes and the voice like honey poured over gravel, about how she looked at him during their scene, not at Humphrey Bogart the star, but at something deeper, something he had forgotten existed. He finishes his drink and pours another. This is dangerous territory. He is 44 years old. He has made every mistake a man can make. He knows better than to let himself feel anything for a girl half his age, a girl who probably sees him as nothing more than a stepping stone to stardom. And yet, he cannot stop thinking about her. Check if you are already subscribed to this channel. Stories like this, stories of real love, real sacrifice, real humanity, are disappearing from the world. This channel exists to keep them alive. Subscribe now, so you never miss a single one. The weeks that follow are unlike anything either of them has experienced. On set, they are professional. They hit their marks, they say their lines, but something crackles between them that everyone can see. Howard Hawks, instead of trying to suppress it, leans into it. He rewrites scenes to give them more time together. He encourages them to improvise, to find moments of connection that no screenwriter could manufacture. The famous whistle scene emerges from one of these improvisations. Lauren Bacall, channeling her character's bold facade, looks at Bogart and delivers the line that will define her career. "You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow." The line is not in the original script. She makes it up on the spot, drawing from a courage she does not know she possesses. And Bogart's reaction, that slow smile, that glint of genuine surprise in his eyes, is completely real. He is not acting. He is falling. Off set, they begin to find reasons to be near each other. She arrives early for makeup calls. Knowing he takes his coffee in the commissary at 6:30, he lingers after shooting wraps, offering to run lines even when they both know the scenes by heart. They talk for hours, about movies and books and music and life. She tells him about growing up in New York, about her immigrant grandparents, about the poverty that taught her hunger was just another kind of fuel. He tells her about his own complicated childhood, about a mother who showed love through criticism and a father who disappeared into work. They share secrets that neither has shared before, and with each confession, each moment of vulnerability, the wall between them crumbles a little more. But there are complications. There are always complications. Bogart is still married. Mayo suspects something is happening, and her suspicions make her dangerous. She shows up on set unannounced. She monitors his phone calls. She threatens Lauren through intermediaries, veiled warnings about what happens to girls who steal other women's husbands. Lauren is frightened. She is 19 years old, a newcomer to Hollywood, with no power and no protection. If Mayo Method decides to destroy her career, there is nothing she can do to stop it. But she cannot walk away. She has tried. She has told herself 100 times that this is madness, that she is risking everything for a man who belongs to someone else. But every time she sees him, every time he looks at her with those dark eyes that seem to see straight through to her soul, all her resolve evaporates. One night, after a particularly difficult shoot, they find themselves alone on the empty soundstage. The crew has gone home, the lights have been dimmed. It is just the two of them, surrounded by the hollow shells of the sets that have become their second home. He walks toward her. She does not back away. "We should not be doing this," he says. "I know. It will end badly. For both of us. Probably." He reaches out, touches her face. His hand is rough, calloused from years of work and harder living, but his touch is gentle. So gentle it makes her want to weep. "I have never met anyone like you," he says. "I did not know people like you existed." She cannot speak. The emotion is too overwhelming. So instead, she does what she has wanted to do since the first day she saw him sitting outside his dressing room. She rises on her toes. She puts her lips against his, and she kisses him. The kiss lasts only a moment, but in that moment, both of them know that nothing will ever be the same. The affair continues through the remaining months of filming. They are careful, discreet. They meet in places where no one will recognize them. Small restaurants in distant neighborhoods. Drives along the coast, where the only witnesses are the waves. But Hollywood is a small town and secrets have a way of escaping. Rumors begin to circulate. Columnists hint at an on-set romance. Mayo's behavior becomes increasingly erratic. She confronts Bogart at parties, accusing him of betrayal. She leaves threatening messages at Lauren's apartment. The situation becomes untenable, and then the letter arrives. It is April 1944. To Have and Have Not has wrapped principal photography. Lauren Bacall sits in her apartment, surrounded by moving boxes. She has been offered another picture, and she will be leaving soon for location shooting. This might be the end. The affair might simply fade away, becoming nothing more than a footnote in both their lives. She does not want it to fade away. She does not want to live without him, so she does something she has never done before. She picks up a pen and a sheet of paper, and she writes. The words pour out of her, everything she has been too afraid to say. She tells him that she loves him, not the movie star, not the icon, but the man underneath, the man who read poetry to her between takes, the man who cried when he talked about his failures, The man who looked at her like she was the only real thing in a world made of cardboard and paint. She tells him that she knows their situation is impossible. She knows he has obligations, a wife, a reputation to protect. She tells him she will understand if he chooses to walk away. But she needs him to know, before whatever happens next, that what they shared was real, that he was seen, truly seen, perhaps for the first time in his life. And then she writes the words that will stay with him forever. I have loved many versions of myself since we met, but the version I love most is the one I see reflected in your eyes. Whatever happens from here, that is the gift you have given me, and I will carry it with me, always. She seals the envelope. She writes his name on the front, and she asks a mutual friend to deliver it. What she does not know is that this letter will become the most important document in Humphrey Bogart's life. He receives it on a Tuesday afternoon. He is in his study, the same study where he has spent countless nights questioning every decision he has ever made. Mayo is upstairs, sleeping off another argument. The house feels like a prison. His life feels like a series of walls closing in. His friend hands him the envelope and leaves without explanation. Bogart recognizes the handwriting immediately. His heart begins to pound. He has received hundreds of fan letters, thousands of pieces of correspondence from admirers and colleagues and strangers. But he has never felt this way looking at an envelope before. He opens it carefully, as if the paper itself is precious, and then he reads. When he finishes, he reads it again and again. Each time the words hit him differently. Each time something inside him cracks open a little more. He has been loved before. At least he has been told he was loved, but no one has ever seen him like this. No one has ever described the man he secretly hoped he could be. No one has ever made him feel that redemption might be possible, even for someone who has failed as many times as he has. He folds the letter and places it in his breast pocket, against his heart. He will never tell Lauren that he keeps it there. He will never tell anyone. But from this moment forward, that letter will travel with him everywhere, through divorce proceedings and wedding ceremonies, through film sets and hospital rooms, through all the days he has left. If this story has touched you, if you understand what it means to be seen by another person, then leave a comment right now. Write these words: to be seen is to be loved, because that is what this story teaches us. And I want to know that you understand. The months that follow are turbulent. Bogart makes his decision. He will leave Mayo. He will risk everything, his reputation, his career, his carefully constructed public image, for a chance at something real. The divorce is brutal. Mayo does not go quietly. She sells stories to the tabloids. She makes accusations that follow Bogart for years. She threatens to destroy both him and that girl, as she calls Lauren. But Bogart does not waver. For the first time in his life, he knows exactly what he wants. On May 21st, 1945, 11 months after Lauren wrote her letter, they are married at a small ceremony at the home of Louis Bromfield, a novelist friend of Bogart's. There are only a handful of guests. Lauren wears a simple pink suit. Bogart wears a grey suit and a smile that his closest friends have never seen before. When the ceremony ends, he pulls her aside. Away from the guests and the champagne and the well-wishes, he reaches into his jacket pocket and removes the letter. "I want you to know something," he says. "I have read this letter every day since you wrote it. Every single day, and I will read it every day for the rest of my life." Lauren's eyes fill with tears. She had wondered over the months whether the letter had made any difference, whether her words had meant anything, or whether they had simply been absorbed into the chaos of their situation and forgotten. Now she knows. She reaches for the letter, but he pulls it back gently. "I cannot let you have it," he says. "I need it. It reminds me of who I am when I am with you, and I never want to forget." She does not argue. She understands. From that day forward, the letter becomes part of their shared mythology, a sacred object that belongs to both of them and to neither. Lauren sometimes catches Bogart reading it late at night, when he thinks she is asleep. She sees him trace the words with his finger, his lips moving silently, and each time she falls in love with him all over again. Their marriage defies every prediction. Hollywood expected it to fail. A 20-year-old ingenue and a 45-year-old veteran, scarred by 3 failed marriages and a reputation for volatility. The smart money said it would last a year, maybe 2, but something different has happened, something that neither of them fully understands. In each other, they have found not just love, but recognition. They see each other clearly, without illusion or pretense, and that clarity, that honesty, becomes the foundation of everything they build together. They have 2 children, a son, Stephen, born in 1949, a daughter, Leslie, born in 1952. Lauren reduces her film work to focus on their family. Bogart, for the first time in his career, begins turning down projects that would take him away from home for too long. Their house in Holmby Hills becomes a gathering place for their closest friends. The Rat Pack, that legendary group of Hollywood royalty, takes shape around their dinner table. Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn, they all find their way to the Bogart home, drawn by the warmth and authenticity that radiates from both hosts. But at the center of everything, always, is the letter. Lauren sometimes finds it left out on Bogart's desk, the paper worn thin from handling. She notices that he carries it whenever he travels, tucking it into his suitcase before anything else. Once, during a particularly difficult shoot on the African Queen, she receives a telegram from him. It says simply, "Reading the letter, missing you, home soon." He never explains. He does not need to. She knows. As the years pass, something begins to change. Bogart has always been a heavy drinker and a chain smoker. It is part of his image, part of the persona that made him famous. But now the consequences of those choices are catching up with him. In 1956, he is diagnosed with esophageal cancer. The news is devastating. The prognosis is grim. He will undergo surgery and then radiation, and then the slow decline that no treatment can prevent. Lauren refuses to accept it. She researches every experimental treatment. She contacts doctors around the world. She sits by his bedside night after night, holding his hand, willing him to fight. But Bogart knows. He has always been a realist. He has looked death in the face in 100 movies, and now he recognizes it in the mirror. His time is running out. He begins to prepare. He makes arrangements for Lauren and the children. He ensures that his financial affairs are in order. He says goodbye to friends, though he disguises it as casual conversation, and he spends hours with the letter. Lauren watches him during these moments. He holds the yellowed paper with such tenderness, such reverence. Sometimes he reads it aloud, his voice barely a whisper. Sometimes he simply holds it against his chest, eyes closed, breathing slowly. One night, she finally asks him, "Bogey, what is it about that letter?" He looks at her. His face is gaunt now, the illness stealing more of him each day. But his eyes are still clear, still full of that intelligence, that depth that she fell in love with 12 years ago. "Before you wrote this," he says, "I did not know who I was. I had played tough guys and romantics and heroes, but they were all characters. Masks I wore because I did not know what was underneath." He pauses, breathes. The effort of speaking is enormous now. "This letter," he continues, "showed me. You saw something in me that I could not see in myself, and every day that I read it, I become a little more like the man you described, the man I want to be." Lauren cannot speak. Tears stream down her face. "That is why I keep it," he says. "Not because it reminds me of you, it does, but because it reminds me of me, the best version of me, the version that is worthy of your love." She crawls into the bed beside him. She wraps her arms around his thin frame, and they stay that way for hours, not speaking, just breathing together. The end comes on January 14th, 1957. It is a cold morning. The rain that has fallen for days has finally stopped, leaving the world washed clean. The house is quiet. Lauren has been at his bedside all night, along with the children and a few close friends. Bogart drifts in and out of consciousness. When he is awake, his eyes search for Lauren. When he finds her, he relaxes. She is there. That is all that matters. Around 2 in the morning, he asks her to bring him the letter. She retrieves it from its place on the nightstand. The envelope is so worn now that it barely holds together. The paper inside is soft as cloth. The ink faded from 1,000 readings, but the words are still legible. They will always be legible. She hands it to him. He holds it against his heart. "Read it to me," he whispers. Lauren takes the letter. Her hands are shaking. Her voice trembles, but she reads. She reads the words she wrote 12 years ago, when she was barely more than a girl, when she had no idea what life would bring. She reads about love and recognition and the gift of being seen. She reads about the version of herself she loved most, the one reflected in his eyes. When she finishes, she looks at Bogart. He is smiling, that rare, genuine smile that so few people ever saw, the smile he reserved for her alone. "Thank you," he says, "for everything." Those are his last words. A few hours later, as the sun begins to rise over Holmby Hills, Humphrey Bogart takes his final breath. Lauren is holding his hand. The letter is pressed against his chest. He is 67 years old. He has lived a life that most people cannot imagine, full of triumph and failure, love and loss, mistakes and redemption. But in the end, none of that matters. What matters is the letter. What matters is being seen. What matters is finding one person in the world who looks at you and recognizes your true self, and loves you anyway. The funeral is private. Only family and close friends attend. Lauren delivers a eulogy that she can barely get through. She speaks of his talent, his humor, his generosity, but mostly she speaks of his capacity for love. He was not an easy man, she says. He was complicated and stubborn, and sometimes impossible. But when he loved completely, without reservation, without pretense. He gave everything he had, and he asked only for the truth in return. She pauses, takes a breath. I gave him that truth once, in a letter, and he carried it with him every day for the rest of his life. That is the kind of man he was. That is what we have lost. That is what we must remember. After the funeral, Lauren goes home. The house feels empty without him. The children are with relatives. The friends have gone home. She is alone with her grief. She walks into the bedroom. The bed has been stripped. The nightstand has been cleared. But there, resting on the pillow where his head used to lay, is the letter. Someone has placed it there. She never learns who. She picks it up, holds it against her heart, just as he used to do, and then, for the first time since he died, she breaks down completely. The grief comes out of her like a physical force, shaking her whole body, tearing sounds from her throat that she did not know she could make. She cries for hours. She cries for the man she lost, for the love they shared, for the future they will never have. She cries until there is nothing left inside her but a hollow ache that she knows will never fully go away. But when the tears finally stop, something else remains: gratitude, because she had him. For 12 years she had him. She experienced a love that most people only dream about. She was seen and cherished and valued in a way that changed her forever. The letter taught him who he could be, and in teaching him, it taught her something too, that the words we write have power beyond anything we can imagine, that love, once given, never truly disappears, that the people we touch continue to carry us with them, long after we are gone. Lauren Bacall lives for another 57 years. She remarries once, briefly and unhappily. She raises her children. She returns to acting, building a second career on Broadway that wins her acclaim and awards. She writes memoirs that become bestsellers. She becomes, in her own right, a legend, but she never forgets. She keeps the letter. It passes through her life like a talisman, a reminder of everything she once had. She reads it on anniversaries. She reads it when she misses him. She reads it on those long nights when the world feels too cold, and she needs to remember what warmth feels like. And sometimes, late at night, she writes letters of her own, letters to Bogart, telling him about the children, about her career, about the small moments of beauty she encounters. She knows he cannot read them. She knows they will never be delivered, but she writes them anyway, because that is what love is. That is what love does. It reaches across impossible distances. It speaks when there is no one to listen. It persists, stubbornly, defiantly, long after logic says it should fade away. If you have watched this far, it is because you understand. You understand what it means to love someone so completely that their absence feels like a physical wound. You understand that some connections transcend time and space and even death itself. You understand that being truly seen by another person is the greatest gift any of us can receive. This channel exists for people like you, for people who believe that love still matters, for people who want to hear stories that remind them of their own capacity for depth and devotion and courage. If you watched this far, it is because you liked this story. Leave a comment saying, "I watched this far so I can get to know you and know who really likes the stories on this channel." And if this story moved you, if it reminded you of someone you love or someone you have lost or someone you hope to find, then hit the like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe so you never miss another story like this one, because these stories are disappearing. The world moves faster now. People do not have time for depth anymore. They scroll past love stories to watch something shorter, something easier, something that requires nothing from them. But you are different. You stayed, you listened, you let yourself feel something. That makes you rare, that makes you valuable, that makes you exactly the kind of person this channel was created for. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being the kind of person who still believes that love stories matter. Humphrey Bogart saw a letter addressed to Lauren Bacall and decided to keep it for the rest of his life. Now you know why. Now you understand that the letter was never about the words. It was about being seen. It was about being known. It was about two imperfect people finding perfection in each other's gaze. They do not make love stories like this anymore. But as long as we remember them, as long as we tell them, they never truly end. This has been their story, a story of paper and ink, a story of courage and vulnerability, a story of a letter that changed everything. May you find your own letter someday. May someone see you the way Lauren saw Bogart. May you have the courage to write down what you feel, even when you are afraid. Because love unexpressed is love unlived, and life is too short for silence. Until next time, take care of the people you love. Tell them what they mean to you. Write it down if you cannot say it out loud. You never know how long those words will last. Lauren Bacall died on August 12, 2014. She was 89 years old. Her children found the letter among her possessions. It was still in its original envelope, still bearing her handwriting from 1944. She had kept it for 70 years. When asked about her marriage to Bogart, she always said the same thing. It was the only time in my life that I was completely myself. He let me be real, and in return, I showed him who he really was. That was our secret. That was our gift to each other. The letter now belongs to the Bogart family estate. It has never been published. The exact words remain private, shared only between two people who loved each other completely. But we know what it meant. We know what it did. We know that a 19-year-old girl, frightened and in love, sat down one night and poured her heart onto paper. And in doing so, she gave a cynical, wounded man permission to believe in something he had given up on long ago. She gave him permission to believe in himself. That is the power of words. That is the power of love. That is why this story will never be forgotten. In the end, Humphrey Bogart was not remembered for his tough guy roles, or his Academy Awards, or his legendary status in Hollywood history. He was remembered for being a man who learned, late in life, that love was worth risking everything for. And Lauren Bacall was not remembered for her sultry voice, or her iconic films, or her second career on Broadway. She was remembered for being a woman who had the courage to tell the truth, even when the truth was terrifying. They found each other in the most unlikely of circumstances. They built something beautiful against impossible odds, and they left behind a legacy that reminds us all of what matters most. Not fame, not fortune, not the applause of strangers or the approval of critics. Just one person looking at another and saying, "I see you, I know you, and I love what I see." That is what Humphrey Bogart found in that letter. That is what he carried with him every day for 12 years. That is what he held against his heart as he took his final breath. A letter, a few pages of paper, a woman's words, and the greatest love story Hollywood has ever known. The rain returns to Los Angeles tonight. It falls softly over Holmby Hills, tapping against windows that have seen more history than most museums. Somewhere in the city, an old movie plays on late-night television. Humphrey Bogart squints at the camera. Lauren Bacall tilts her chin and looks up through her lashes. They are young again, beautiful, immortal, and if you listen closely, you can almost hear her whisper, "You know how to whistle, don't you?" He smiles, that rare, genuine smile, and somewhere, in a place beyond cameras and sound stages and all the noise of Hollywood, he reaches for the letter. He will always reach for the letter, because some things last forever. This is not just a story about two celebrities. This is a story about what happens when we let ourselves be vulnerable, when we risk rejection, when we say the words that terrify us most. Lauren Bacall could have kept her feelings to herself. She could have played it safe, protected her heart, waited for Bogart to make the first move, but she did not. She wrote the letter. She put everything on the line, and in doing so she changed not only his life but her own. We all have letters we have not written, words we have not said, feelings we have buried because we were afraid of what might happen if we let them out. But here is the truth that this story teaches us. The risk is always worth it, because yes, you might be rejected, you might be hurt, you might expose yourself to pain that feels unbearable, but you might also be seen, you might also be loved. You might also touch another person so deeply that they carry your words with them for the rest of their days. That is the gamble of love. That is the courage it requires. Lauren Bacall knew this when she was 19 years old. She knew that some things are too important to leave unsaid. She knew that the greatest tragedy is not rejection. It is regret. It is lying on your deathbed and wondering what might have been if only you had been brave enough to try. She tried. She wrote, she risked everything. And she won. Not because love is guaranteed, not because vulnerability is always rewarded, but because she gave herself a chance. She opened the door. She let the light in. That is what courage looks like. That is what love requires, and that is why this story matters. Because it reminds us that we have choices. Every day we can choose to hide or to reveal, to protect ourselves or to take a chance, to stay silent or to speak our truth. The letter in this story was not written by a professional writer. It was not crafted by a poet or edited by a genius. It was written by a frightened young woman who loved a man and wanted him to know. That is all it takes. That is all it has ever taken. The words do not have to be perfect. They just have to be true. So here is your challenge. As you reach the end of this story, think about your own unsent letters. Think about the things you have wanted to say but have not said. Think about the people in your life who deserve to know what they mean to you. And then write them. Write the letter. Send the message. Make the call. Do not wait until it is too late. Do not wait until the people you love are gone and you are left with nothing but regret. Be like Lauren. Be brave. Be vulnerable. Be real. Because that is what they did. That is what made their love extraordinary. Not their fame or their beauty or their talent, but their willingness to be honest with each other, to show each other their true selves, to build something real in a world full of illusions. You can do the same. Your love story might not make it into the history books. It might not be remembered by strangers 100 years from now, but it will matter to you. It will matter to the person you love. And that is enough. That has always been enough. Humphrey Bogart saw a letter addressed to Lauren Bacall and decided to keep it for the rest of his life. What letters are you keeping? What letters are you waiting to write? The paper is in front of you. The pen is in your hand. Now write. End of story.